Welcome to Movie Rehash. Today, I'm going to explain an action, comedy movie released in 2022, titled, The Man from Toronto. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins with Teddy Jackson, trying to create a video to promote his fitness business. He uses elastic bands, a tracksuit, and tries to do non-contact boxing, but he fails at all of these things. Out in the desert, a mysterious assassin called the Man from Toronto reaches a cabin to question a person. Toronto prepares to use a hot knife to get answers, which frightens the person into giving up the information quickly. After Toronto goes away, the person is shot and killed by the one who hired Toronto. Teddy is getting ready to celebrate his anniversary with his wife, Lori. Lori loves Teddy, but she knows he often messes things up, and her co-workers even use the term teddying things up for making mistakes. Teddy plans a romantic trip using an Airbnb, but due to a low toner situation, he can't read the exact address clearly. Teddy heads to work and meets his boss, Marty. He is upset with Teddy because he printed flyers for their gym without including the address or phone number. Although Marty has a fondness for Teddy, he has to let him go from the job. Toronto comes back home and starts making his breakfast when his handler, Agentka, gets in touch with him. While Toronto just wants to relax, the handler informs him that the next job she has lined up is worth $2 million. Teddy and Lori reach the spa where he's treating her for their anniversary. After dropping Lori off, Teddy goes to what he thinks is the Airbnb based on the reservation he printed out. However, due to a mix-up, Teddy ends up at a cabin where Toronto is supposed to meet his target. The people in the cabin mistake Teddy for the Man from Toronto and take him to the basement, thinking he's their target. As Teddy realizes he's in a tough situation, he tries to calm the person they're holding captive, but the person is scared and gives the thugs the information they want. Soon after, a flash grenade is thrown into the basement, and FBI agents rush in, arresting all the individuals, including Teddy. Teddy gets questioned by two agents who figure out that he's definitely not the Man from Toronto. However, the agents need the Man from Toronto to help them catch a former Venezuelan colonel named Sebastian Marin. He tried to lead a coup the previous year to take down the government, but US intelligence stopped him. Marin and his wife, Daniela, escaped before they could be arrested. They want Teddy to keep pretending to be the Man from Toronto to get close to Marin and capture him. The agents assign Agent Santoro to look after Lori while Teddy is on the mission. Teddy feels insecure because Santoro is charming and good-looking. Teddy has to explain to Lori that he's away for a work conference since he never told her about losing his job. Santoro takes care of Lori, and she spends time with her friend Annie. Toronto discovers the mix-up and the handler provides him with Teddy's details. He sees Teddy's fitness advertisements and can't believe that this is the guy mistaken for him. Toronto locates Teddy while the agents are taking him to meet Daniela Marin. Instead of meeting Marin, Daniela's associates take Teddy to a hangar. Toronto forces one of the agents, at gunpoint, to follow them. Teddy finds himself on a plane bound for Puerto Rico. While in mid-air, Toronto sneaks onto the plane and reveals himself as the person they've been looking for. However, they still think Teddy is the real assassin. Toronto proves himself by taking down Marin's henchmen and saving Teddy after a near fall from the plane. They touch down in a field, and after the plane explodes, they start making their way on foot. The handler contacts Toronto and scolds him for not eliminating Teddy, as they don't leave witnesses alive. Toronto informs Teddy that they need to locate someone named Mr. Green and bring him to Marin, as Marin has seen Teddy's photo and thinks he's Toronto. At a golf course, another assassin called the Man from Miami arrives to confront his client with a golf club. He receives a call from the handler and accepts a contract to handle the situation with Toronto. Miami then transforms his golf club into a makeshift rifle and eliminates the other golfer who witnessed the incident. Toronto brings Teddy to a tech convention to locate Mr. Green. Toronto coaches Teddy on how to act like him to find Green. Teddy is led into a room with one of Marin's men while Toronto guides him through an earpiece. There are 4 captive men, and Teddy must interrogate them all to identify Mr. Green. Various methods are used to pressure them into talking, but Teddy accidentally hurts one man. Despite his efforts to remain composed, he ends up getting sick. One of the men eventually admits to being Mr. Green. However, one of the thugs notices Teddy's earpiece and prepares to harm him, prompting Toronto to step in and resolve the situation. He then retrieves Mr. Green's thumb and secures it in a bag. As the two attempt to exit the building, Miami locates them and pursues them. He throws Teddy off a ledge, but Teddy manages to hold onto a decoration. Meanwhile, Toronto and Miami engage in a fight while Teddy tries to lower himself down. Miami almost seizes the bag containing Mr. Green's thumb, but Teddy falls on top of him, and Toronto incapacitates Miami. Toronto then gets in touch with the handler to get an update on the situation. After overhearing the conversation, Teddy begins to suspect that the handler is not being truthful with Toronto. Teddy and Toronto board a flight to Washington, D.C. During the journey, Toronto admits that he's aware of Teddy's past mistakes, both from their in-person interactions and by reviewing his history of failed gym ads. Upon their arrival, Teddy contacts Lori, and they arrange to meet at an upscale restaurant, which catches the attention of the FBI. Teddy brings Toronto along and starts coaching him on social skills. They meet Lori, who has invited Annie. Toronto and Annie hit it off, but their conversation is cut short when Teddy spots Miami arriving at the restaurant. Miami catches up with them in a closet, where Toronto confronts him again. During the scuffle, Toronto is mistakenly shot in the leg by Teddy, and Miami takes the bag with Mr. Green's thumb. Teddy and Toronto move quickly, stealing a police car to catch up with Miami, who, along with a handler, is on the way to meet Marin. While en route to Marin's hotel room, Teddy inquires about a job in Minnesota that has been mentioned. Toronto shares that the job involved eliminating a man who owed gambling debts to dangerous individuals. However, he couldn't go through with it when he saw the man's child, and that choice haunted him as the man later went on a violent spree. Toronto explains that once he completes this task, he wants to open his own restaurant and put an end to his life as an assassin. At the hotel, Marin and Daniela meet with the handler in Miami. They discover that the thumb Miami took to trigger a bomb meant to assassinate the Venezuelan president doesn't work. It turns out that Mr. Green was actually the chief thug involved in the interrogation. Teddy arrives and pretends to be Toronto, even though the handler tries to persuade Marin that he's not the real deal. The FBI arrives and apprehends Marin and Daniela, but the handler and Miami manage to escape. Toronto ends up taking the payment that the handler would have received. Teddy hurries back home in search of Lori, but he discovers the house empty. Lori left him a message, explaining that she's gone to her mother's house because she's unsure about what's happening with Teddy. Meanwhile, the handler begins reaching out to other assassins to track down Teddy and Toronto. The following day, Teddy finds out that Lori will be at the train station, so he rushes there to catch her before she leaves. Miami locates Teddy and attempts to harm him, but Toronto arrives just in time, saving Teddy. Toronto confesses that he didn't want to see Teddy get killed. However, their relief is short-lived as they're confronted by the man from Moscow, the man from Tokyo, and the men from Tacoma. The group seeks refuge in Teddy's old gym, where Toronto eliminates all the assassins. They are later cornered by Miami outside, but Teddy discovers his inner strength and manages to knock Miami out, despite injuring his hand in the process. The handler arrives and asks for the money, which is in Toronto's car's trunk. They have a chase where the handler shoots grenades at Teddy and Toronto, and it leads them to a factory. The handler corners them with a gun, but Teddy pulls a lever, and the handler falls into a hot container, where she gets seriously hurt and died. After this, Toronto lets Teddy use his car to catch up to Lori. Teddy manages to catch up and says sorry to Lori for not being honest, and they reconcile. Then, Toronto's car gets hit by a train because Teddy left it on the tracks, and all the money scatters. After that, Teddy gets tackled by the police. A year later, Teddy and Lori are going to have a baby. Toronto has started his restaurant and is in a relationship with Annie. Teddy's no-contact boxing gym business is doing well, but Toronto still wants to get back at Teddy for wrecking his car. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.